video lesson for Monday 11/16, and we're going to be taking a look at transformations once again. I know everyone's favorite thing. Ideally, we're practicing it more. It's going to get better as we go. So we're going to take a look now at x to the third, and some of these are going to start with parent function. We are going to start to do some now that don't start with the parent function, yet we still do transformations to them. So let's start with the parent function of x to the third, and I want you to think in terms of, when we talk about x to the third, I want you to think what that would look like if I were to make a chart. 0, 0, just like the parabola. 1, 1, because 1 to the third power is still 1. 2 would give me 8, because 2 to the third is 8. But then something weird happens when I go negative 1. Well, not weird, it's just different than x to the third. Negative 1 to the third would be 3 negatives multiplied. That's still a negative, so it doesn't kick back up like the parabola does. It actually goes down. And so negative 2 would actually be negative 8. And so what we get for a parent function, 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 8. But then I also have negatives for those instead of it being symmetric across the y-axis. So it goes up steeper than a parabola does, because a parabola is 2, 4. This is 2, 8. But it does a mirror image of it, but down in the third quadrant. So not in symmetric about the y-axis like the parabola does. That's what a parent function looks like. Now for our sketching purposes, okay, we want to be semi-accurate, but we are just sketching. 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 8. Make it a little steeper than a parabola is, and then down like this. That's a decent enough sketch centered. Now the vertex, there is no vertex, but we do have a center, and that's at 0, 0. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at this and start by describe the transformations. Identify the transformations. I see a 2 being multiplied on the inside, so that's a horizontal shrink by 1/2. It's the same as the parabolas. The transformations don't change. The only thing different is now this is an x to the third. That tells me the parent function. But how I do the transformations is no different. The fact that there's a negative on the outside, that's a reflection around the x-axis. Okay? Then plus 3 on the outside, that's up 3. Because it's on the outside. So the transformations are the same as before. So that's the first part. You've identified them. Now let's see if we can sketch that. Here is my parent function. 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 8. Going the same thing down here. Okay. Here's negative 8, whatever. Okay, just a sketch. And we are going to horizontally shrink it by 1/2. So horizontally shrinking it is bringing it closer to the axis. It's that vice press squeezing in on it. So that means it's going to be skinnier by 1/2. See how it's halfway to the axis? Right there, that's what we mean by 1/2. But again, we're just looking for a sketch. So it's a skinnier one. Then I'm going to flip it around the x-axis. So that means here's the x-axis. We're going to rotate it this way. So here's the rotation around that x-axis. So that means, I'll do this in blue, this upper part up here is now going to be down here. This lower part is now going to be up here. That's a reflection around the x-axis. By the way, it would also be a reflection in the y. X and y reflections are the same with x to the third. Okay, whether you flipped it around the y, flipped it around the x, it's going to look the same if it's centered at 0, 0. But anyway, so there's my rotation around the x-axis in blue, and then I'm going to move it up 3 units. I'll do this in black. So instead of my center being here, it's going to be up 3 units. So here at 3, and it's going to be that same one as the blue looks like. A skinnier, reflected, moved up 3, x to the third function. Now if you understood the stuff from the last unit, this should be easy. If not, here's another chance to get it right. And if you're not sure how to do it, get back in the live session and ask me more questions. Okay? Or contact me. We'll work through it together to help you figure it out. All right, let's go to the next one. I have a -5 on the inside. That means I'm moving right 5. Remember, we do the opposite. H is actually just 5 because it's x minus h. So h itself is just 5. Then I have a minus 6 on the outside. Well, that's down 6. So that should be a pretty easy one to sketch. I take my parent function, 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 8, going down this way. That's a poor representation. As you know, I hate graphing on my pad, but that's okay. And I'm going to move it right 5. So let's move this here. And I don't have to draw it right now fully, but I'm also going to move it down 6. So down to negative 6. So that center, just like the vertex would be at, is at h comma k, 5 comma negative 6. And it hasn't been stretched or shrunk at all, so it's just the normal parent function at 5 comma negative 6 as the center. Then we get to this curious thing where I have a non-parent function to begin with. So we're going to take a look at a couple things. One thing I see is that both x's have been replaced with x plus 2. Instead of x and x, it's x plus 2 in parentheses. Well, we know plus 2 on the inside means that we're going to move left 2. But then I also see that the whole thing was multiplied by 4. You see this is now times 4 times 4. So that's multiplied by 4, so that means it was a vertical stretch. It wasn't multiplied inside parentheses, it's outside. So it's a vertical stretch by 4. But think about what that would look like. If I had multiplied this original by 4, now this takes a little bit of work, I should have had 12, but I didn't. What I have now is negative 10. So what happened? Instead of being down at negative 12, I'm up at negative 10. It moved up 2 units. I added 2. So because I added 2, right? So that must be an up 2, because I added 2 to get from what should have been a minus 12, I ended up at a minus 10. So some of these can be a little bit tricky. That'll take a little bit of work. But that's what you're going to be trying today. Homework's up. Notes are up. I'm in a live session with any questions.